wait for 2-3 minutes. I think the system is also about to boot up again. Okay. So yeah. So your doubts regarding mains preparation, what you should be doing right now is you have to take GS paper 1, paper 2, paper 3 syllabus sheet. Okay. And you should identify the topics of polity, history, geography, economy, environment, science and tech. 5 subjects, same mains syllabus sheet, you take that. You have to always keep preparing, because whatever you prepare for these subjects from main syllabus sheet is also going to be useful for your prelims also in many ways. You will realize it only when you give your first attempt. Some things which you will not find in Lakshmikant, but you would have prepared it somewhere in some PDF for your mains preparation. Just because of that, you will be able to get it right in your prelims. So that is why I would say mains preparation is a continuous ongoing process. There is no end to it. Okay, you should just keep on doing it. And answer writing also the same applies. Every day you should at least write for half an hour. That is like a habit. So habits have to be always, they have to remain intact. If you start losing touch with a habit, then you will forget it. So answer writing for half an hour is not a big deal. Okay, half an hour of your time will always keep you very well prepared for your mains. So that is all that is you have to prepare for mains. So you can see that it is not an exclusive mains preparation. Maybe your optional, your ethics, all that you can put on hold as of now. But other subjects, as I told you, you have to keep on preparing. Okay. Sir, I'm studying second year UG, going to give my attempt. How should I prepare for next 1 year? And did not study any textbook, studied only class notes. No. That is a very bad habit, a wrong method. Your education should come from textbooks, not from the classes. Classes are there just to teach you how to think. That's all. But the language in which an answer in mains has to be written, the language in which your thoughts have to be communicated, all that you will never be able to pick up from the classes. So your preparation should never be from the class notes. Your class notes are just a reference. It's just a guide to help you when you read books, to just help you what you have to read and what you should not read. But your primary reading must actually be done only from your textbooks only, for every subject. Don't even think of, you don't ever think you can clear this exam just by reading class notes. Some tips for forest service exam. Well, forest service, you focus more on agriculture, you focus more on environment. That is all I can say, because everything else is the same. And try to go beyond 90 questions in prelims, and your strike rate also has to improve. Clearing prelims is a big task when it comes to forest services. Okay, so focus more on agriculture and environment. More time should be given to these two subjects. So even after course completed, will you correct your answers? Okay, yeah, I can correct, not an issue. But I'll not be correcting all your answer papers. So that will be done by a group of people. In case if you're writing mains this year, of course, then I can correct your papers. Okay. So if you're writing mains, yeah, I'll have a look at your papers and I'll give my feedback also, in addition to the feedback that's being given by paper evaluators. So, all right, I think it's pretty fine now. Okay. தண்ணி வேணுப்பா, ஹாட் வாட்டர். கண்ணாடி கிளாஸில் கொண்டு வந்துருங்க. இந்த கிளாஸா வேண்டாம், யூஸ் பண்ண கிளாஸாக இருக்குது. குடிக்கிற அளவு சூடாக கொண்டு வாங்க, ரொம்ப சூடாக வேண்டாம். So, did you go through whatever was taken yesterday? I'll ask you a question. Are there Panchayat Raj institutions existing in union territories? Do we have PRIs in union territories? Gram Panchayat, Mandal Panchayat. Do we have such bodies in union territories? What is your answer for this question? No. Okay. No, no, no. Well, there are panchayats in Pondicherry. There are municipalities in Delhi. So don't think there are no local body system in union territories. Of course, it exists because there are constitutional provisions which provides for 73rd Amendment provisions to also apply to union territories. Also, there are provisions in the Constitution. Okay, so we'll have to just have a look at them. 243L, application to union territories. So these provisions will also apply to union territories based on an order made by President. Okay, so President has made an order extending the provisions of 73rd Amendment to various union territories. So keep this in mind. Of course, there can be local body system in union territories if the President so desires. So let's be clear about that. At the same time, the system of panchayats will not apply to certain places. Article 243M talks about some exceptions. What kind of exceptions? These provisions will not apply completely to certain states. Some part of these provisions will not apply to certain states. Let's say Nagaland will not have any provision of Panchayat Raj institutions. Arunachal Pradesh will have the entire structure and all, but only reservation concept will be different. There is no reservation for a scheduled caste in Arunachal Pradesh because there are no scheduled castes in Arunachal Pradesh. So Article 243M talks about where these provisions will not apply. There are certain areas which are given here. It's difficult to blindly memorize these. Okay, don't memorize it like that. There are reasons why 73rd Amendment provisions are not applicable to these areas. Why? What could be the reasons? We'll just have a look at that. For that, you have to know certain concepts in the polity, which is fifth scheduled areas. Fifth scheduled areas, sixth schedule tribal areas, union territories, special states. Okay, so we'll just have a look at these four ideas, these four different ideas in the Constitution. We'll just try to find out what Constitution talks about these. First, we'll have a look at these two areas, because in these areas also the normal provisions of Panchayat Raj institutions will not apply. Some modifications are done. We'll just find out what it is. Fifth and sixth scheduled areas in the Constitution. So there are certain central Indian pockets, these areas, and certain parts of northeast. Okay. these areas are very different in its demographic profile compared to other parts of India, because the people living in these places are very different. They have different customs, they have different culture, because they have not been mainstreamed. So it is these pockets in India which are predominantly tribal. Okay, they are having a lot of tribal population. Predominantly, majority of the population in these states, in these areas, happen to be tribal population. So that is why the normal provisions of the constitution will not actually apply to them. I mean, there are certain modifications to the normal provisions of the constitution before they actually apply. So they are given some kind of extra protection. Some certain safeguards are actually given to these areas. Why? And even between these areas, this is treated different, this is treated different, because of certain historical reasons, because of certain cultural reasons. Even among areas populated by tribals, even in their own treatment, we find differences. So what could be the reason for that? Anybody? First of all, tell me why constitution has certain provisions, especially for the administration of these areas. These areas enjoy more autonomy, these areas enjoy more safeguards. So what could be the reason for that? Can you think something from history? They have unique cultural to safeguard tribal culture. That's very true. Yes, because and what we so these areas are what are called as fifth scheduled areas. These areas are collectively called as sixth scheduled tribal areas. Okay, and the need to protect these groups of people is not something the independent Indian government alone got in its mind. The need to have a separate administrative structure for these areas was existing even during Britishers' times also. In Britishers' times, during the time of British Raj, entire Indian possession was divided into 4 different categories. Okay, one is what is called as presidency areas: Madras Presidency, Bombay, Calcutta, United Provinces. So they are all areas which are directly under the British rule, right? Then there were residency areas, princely states, where a resident of the British will be posted in that princely state, and he will have control over the external affairs and certain activities of the princely states, residency areas. The third category is what are called as partially excluded areas, and these are completely excluded areas. So the reason is Britishers, they never went and conquered some areas in the northeast. They felt it is useless. It is not worth the cost and benefit. They would have done their cost benefit analysis. Then they decided that the benefits are not worth the cost of waging a war and trying to bring all these forested lands, which are anyway not very economically very viable. So why do we have to bother about it? Let's not focus on the frontiers. Okay, so these areas were never directly under, or not even the slightest of the British rule was actually existing in these areas. So people were living as per their own customs, their own local methods of political control. All that was existing there. That was how those areas were governed. But when it comes to these areas, the Chota Nagpur Plateau and Central Indian forests, okay, so these areas and all, they were not completely outside the British rule. At the same time, they were not directly governed by the British also. So Britishers only maintained a very token presence in these areas. Okay. So what could be the reason for that? Do you know why? Do you know why Britishers see when these areas are all under the British rule? Why suddenly this part of India alone, Britishers decided that let's not directly rule over those areas. We will only have a very nominal control over them. What could be the reason? What made the Britishers think on such lines? Well, geography is not really in Ooty. Ooty is also a hilly area and all. So, but the Britishers had direct control over Ooty and other such mountainous areas. So, geography is not the only reason. Very good, very correct. Risk of armed rebellion, revolt by Mundas and Santals. Wonderful, very correct answer. So, and I hope you know the reason for Munda rebellion, Santal rebellion. Hmm? You know the reasons for those rebellions? What is the reason? Yeah, one is missionaries. That's correct. Basically, missionaries started coming in. As Britishers came in, missionaries also accompanied them. They came in, they started converting the people, and people became very angry that their the gods are getting violated and Christianity is being propagated. So they felt there was a threat to their local practices. That is one. The other reason is because of zamindari system. That's another correct answer. Loss of land because of the implementation of zamindari system. When Britishers come, they would want to settle the land ownership patterns. Land settlements also will come along with Britishers. So Britishers gave the land, settled them in favor of big zamindars. And the problem with such settlements is a lot of intermediaries, and you know the answer, problems associated with zamindari system. Slowly, because of not being in a position to pay the land rent, the poor tribal loses possession of his own land. The land which was his father's, grandfather's, his forefathers, his ancestors, that land is now going out of his hand. So, and tribal societies, they have a deep attachment with the ownership of land. Okay, so because their only life, their entire life, their happiness, their customs, their drinking habits, their marriage practices, everything is centered around that ownership of that land. And in many places, they also have a communal ownership of land. Okay, so their lifestyle is completely different. So when you bring in a land revenue settlement policy, which actually alienates them from their land, their entire structure collapses, their life is completely disturbed. So that is why they rose in rebellion. And at the end of the rebellion, the Britishers were able to understand what was the reason why these people had fought against us. So they maintained a policy of very minimal interference. Okay, only criminal laws will be applicable there. Like for example, tribals had a practice of head hunting. Okay, so that will be outlawed. So only very minimal, just to ensure civilization. Barbaric practices are outlawed to ensure thuggery, dacoity, thuggery, such things don't happen. Just minimal presence was ensured, and every other activities of life of the tribals, it was left in their own hands. Policy of non-interference, which was again followed by the Indian state also after it became independent. So that is why the partially excluded areas under the British were categorized as fifth schedule areas. These areas are even more difficult to directly govern by Indian government, because these area, at least these areas, they know that what it means to be governed by a set of rules, laws, and regulations, correct? But these areas were completely independent. They have never come under British rule, and they are even more different. And here, at least, you have some homogeneity among the tribals, but here, each and every tribe is different, and they are fighting with each other. They cannot coexist at all. One tribe is the enemy of the other tribe. That kind of a culture prevails there. So that was why these areas are given even more independence, autonomy to manage their own functions. When we discuss about the provisions of 5th schedule and 6th schedule, then you will be able to understand how 6th schedule areas have even greater level of autonomy compared to 5th schedule areas. 5th schedule areas have autonomy greater than normal areas. Okay, so this is what we will actually discuss. We will just have a look at the constitutional provisions. Fifth schedule area. So this is the state of Odisha. Is the entire state of Odisha a scheduled area? Or can you declare a particular area in the state of Odisha as a scheduled area? Is it possible? Or should the whole state be declared as a scheduled area? If you take the state of Odisha, these coastal districts, okay, these coastal districts here, they don't have any tribal population. They have just general population, all normal like any other Indian society. They are there, but it's only in the interiors here where you have predominantly tribal population. So that is why these districts are categorized as scheduled area. Similarly, for the state of Maharashtra, only these particular districts will be categorized as a scheduled area. So wherever there is a predominance of tribal population, and if the tribal development indicators are all very bad, in that case, the power under the constitution is given in the hands of president. So president can declare a particular area as a scheduled area. He can increase the size of the scheduled area, he can decrease the size of the scheduled area, he can remove an area from the category of scheduled area. All such powers are in the hands of president. Okay. So what is the consequence of an area being declared as a scheduled area? Let's say this particular part of Odisha is declared as a scheduled area. So then what will happen? If it is declared as a scheduled area, any law that is made by, okay, there is a, so I told you, and these areas, of course, they have to be governed differently. And another reason why they have to be governed differently is the tribal interests will always, the tribals will always be exploited by the normal people. The normal sections will not be sensitive to the needs of the tribal society. So for the normal society, drinking is an evil. Okay, the habit of drinking is an evil which has to be regulated. If not, I mean, if you cannot ban it outright, if you cannot prohibit people from drinking, at least you should ensure regulation of drinking. Correct? That is how the opinion now is in the normal society. So Gujarat has an official policy of prohibition. So you cannot manufacture liquor, you cannot sell liquor inside Gujarat, except for medicinal purposes. So anyway, so it has a policy of prohibition. Liquor drinking is not allowed in Gujarat. What if tomorrow the Odisha government wants to declare drinking as illegal in Odisha? Okay, because it wants to comply with the majoritarian norms. Majorly people think drinking is a bad habit, it should not be done. Okay, so a lot of political parties have given a manifesto that once they come to power, they will stop drinking in this entire state. Okay, somehow they do that and they come to power. After that, they would want to pass a law so as to prohibit drinking completely. But don't you think the tribal society will get affected because of that? Because every single day the tribal actually drinks. He has nothing else to do, just to be happy in his life. He will do his agriculture, he will have 2-3 wives, he will not think too much about future and all. Whatever food is there given by the government, he will eat. Whatever extra food is there, rice, if it is available in excess, he will make rice beer, he will happily drink. He will collect forest produce, he will make liquor out of that, he will drink, he will dance, he will organize communal festivals. That is how his life is going on. So who are we to go and tell him that you should not drink? Drinking is a bad habit, it is a social evil. So don't you think that is like imposing majoritarian values onto a tribal society, right? That is why the state of Odisha should never be able to impose such values on the tribal societies. So how can you protect them? If any law is made by the state legislature, it will not automatically apply to scheduled areas. Okay, and so let's say this is one example. The other example is these scheduled areas inhabited by the tribals are the same areas where you have abundance of mineral resources, natural resources, forest resources. So the state of Odisha is a poor state. So what it plans, it knows that all iron mines, chromite mines, all that is located in this part of Odisha. So if I can just mine those minerals, maybe I can earn royalty out of that and I can develop the state. Okay. So this is how a society will definitely think. Anybody who has a majority in the legislature, if they can form a government, if they continue to enjoy the majority, they would not care about those minorities or anything. So what if Odisha government makes a provision in Odisha Forest Act? Quarrying is allowed in forest areas, something like that. Okay, it can actually affect the interest of tribals. That is why the tribals and the entire Odisha society might be happy about the law, because whatever money is going to come out of mining, it will be used for building new roads, new hospitals, new employment opportunities can be created for all the mainstream society. All that is fine. But what about the tribals? Even though you may think that tribals can be given compensation, tribals can be given rehabilitation in some other area, he cannot. A tribal man cannot go and survive just like that in a Bombay or in Madras or in Calcutta, just like that. He cannot survive. He has a particular way of life. So it's not easy to. Way of life is actually a habit that he has cultivated over the last 40 years. Suddenly you ask him to stop all that. What activity, what occupation will he actually even find? So it's not actually in the interest of the tribal. So that is why these kind of laws, if it is made by the state legislature, it should not be applicable just like that to the scheduled areas. So this is the safeguard that is actually provided in the 5th schedule of the Constitution. What the 5th schedule says is, if any law is made by the legislature, it will not automatically apply to the scheduled areas. Whether the law is in the interest of tribals or not, the governor will have a look at the law. Okay, governor will have a look at the law. If he finds that the interest of the tribals is not getting affected in any way, he will extend that law by official order will be made by the governor, extending the law to the tribal area, scheduled areas. Or if he thinks that certain parts of the law is not in the interest of the tribals, so he will make amendments only to those parts of the law, and then he will extend the law to the 5th schedule areas. Okay, so this is the protection that is actually given in the Constitution. So this power of the governor to make modifications or to apply laws made by the state legislature onto the scheduled areas. So this is a power given in the hands of governor. But don't you think the governor, see who can be a governor of Odisha? Someone from Tamil Nadu will be posted as a governor of Odisha. And do you think he has any idea about the tribal culture? No idea. He has maybe probably the person would not even have seen a tribal in his life, entire life, and suddenly he becomes a governor of Odisha. So if that is the case, how will the governor know whether a particular law is in the interest of the tribal society or not? How will he know? He will not know. That is why 5th schedule of the Constitution creates a body which is called as Tribes Advisory Council. So Tribes Advisory Council is created in the 5th schedule of the Constitution. It is this body which will render the advice to the governor about the suitability of the laws, whether they can be extended to the scheduled areas or whether they should be amended before they are extended to the scheduled areas. All that has to be done by the governor on the basis of the advice given by Tribes Advisory Council. So who do you think will be the members of Tribes Advisory Council? This body is there to give advice about tribal matters. So who do you think will be the members of Tribes Advisory Council? Yes, scheduled tribes. What the Constitution says is that the Tribes Advisory Council will have scheduled tribe MLAs. It's a body comprising a total strength of 20 members, out of which 3/4 of the membership, that is 15 members, will be scheduled tribe MLAs of the state legislature. And apart from that, 5 more members who will be nominated by the governor. Who are these 5 members? They will be some academicians specializing in tribal affairs, tribal studies. So someone who is active in the domain of tribal welfare. So they are all. This is the composition of Tribes Advisory Council. So this is also another provision that is actually given in 5th schedule of the Constitution. Okay, I'll ask you another question then. Do you have scheduled areas in Tamil Nadu? Are there scheduled areas in Tamil Nadu? No, it is not there. Okay. Do we have Tribes Advisory Council in Tamil Nadu? Probably not, but we actually have. Okay. So what you have to understand here is the presence of scheduled areas is not a ground for a state having Tribes Advisory Council. Even if there are no scheduled areas declared in a state, even then a tribes advisory council can be constituted in a state if there are tribal population in the state. Okay, so keep this in your mind. In Tamil Nadu also we have a tribes advisory council so as to advise the governor on tribal matters. So not necessarily that scheduled areas have to exist, only then tribes advisory council can be there. So there is a question, is the advice of the tribes advisory council binding on the governor, right? That is the question. What I would say is, you don't have to be worried anywhere about the binding nature of any kind of advices. So UPSC will definitely not ask you a question whether the advice of TAC is binding on the governor, whether the advice of Council of Ministers is binding on the president. UPSC never will ask you such questions, because the word binding is not given in the constitution anywhere. But I can safely tell you, the governor will not disregard the advice given by the governor will not disregard the advice that is given by the tribes advisory council, just like how a president will not disregard the advice given by finance commission. See, why do you think a governor will do you think the governor has any reason to disregard the advice of tribes advisory council? Tell me. So do you think president will disregard the advice of finance commission? What is your opinion? They will not. Why is the finance commission constituted? It is constituted as an advisory body. Okay, the president, I am constituting an advisory body because I have zero knowledge about finance as a president. So this expert body has done a 2-year long work, and it is giving me suggestions on how I should divide resources between center and states. Why would I actually disregard the advice of the finance commission? And moreover, if I disregard it, it will not go well with the state governments. State governments will probably, so see, center and state relationship, it works with some kind of an understanding that central government will not unduly give a discriminatory treatment towards a particular state. Okay, in a democracy, you cannot blatantly just put down a particular state just because it is an opposition rule state. It can never happen like that. Then the entire people, 6 crore people of a state, if they rise up against the central government will collapse. We are all living in such a kind of a society. Okay, so the democracy is alive only as long as people do not rise up against the government in an uprising or in a civil war. Once such thing happens, no army, nothing can actually protect any kind of governments. So no government would want to earn the displeasure of the people, or no government would want to upset the faith that people still have on their own governments. So nobody will actually afford to turn down the recommendations of the finance commission, just like that throw finance commission dustbin. Whatever I feel like giving, I'll only give that. Then it is not democracy, that is dictatorship. No governments will visibly do that. Okay, so that is why. And moreover, president, governors, they're all such high authorities. You cannot place anybody above the president, highest in the order of precedence. So when that is why the constitution has never used the word binding on the president anywhere. If you're using the word binding on the president, it means that president is subjugated, he is made as a secondary. Finance commission is given a position above the president or what? That can never happen there. Okay, so that is why constitution has very categorically avoided the words binding, but it is expected that no presidents will violate the recommendations of finance commission, just like how no governor will violate the recommendations of a tribes advisory council. This body is there for the interest of the tribals, a constitutional promise given for the safeguarding of the tribals. Why? What reason do you think a governor will have? A governor who has no idea about tribal matters, why would he not oblige the recommendations of the tribes advisory council? So that is not how it will work. So I'm sorry, I cannot answer your question. Is tribes advisory council binding on the governor? Here you will find a clause here. Where is it? Okay. Yeah, no regulation shall be made under this paragraph unless the governor making the regulation has, in case where there is a tribes advisory council for the state, consulted such council. It's a word consult, okay. But 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 have you understood the meaning of the word consult? Consult. Do you can you remember how the word consult can actually be interpreted? Yes? Yes or no? We had discussed how the word consult was given a very different kind of an interpretation in the judge's case, right? Yeah. The president's consultation in the appointment of judges means the concurrence of the Supreme Court. But even there, the Supreme Court itself does not say that it is binding on the president. It said it's a concurrence. So legal language and English, so you have to be very careful. We cannot use the word binding. That would be very disrespectful of such high authorities. But what you can actually know here is governor will make a lot of regulations. What are the regulations? So I'll tell you what they are. As you know, the need to protect the tribal land was the main reason for 5th schedule provisions in the constitution, correct? Why tribal land has to be protected? As I told you, tribal life is completely centered around ownership of land. Their rituals, marriage, everything is around ownership of land. So how can tribals be how can they be deprived of their land holding? Can you think of a reason? How do you think a tribal can be deprived of his land holding? What would be your answer? If I were to ask you this question, how could a tribal be deprived of his land holding? The reason we have 5th schedule is to protect the interests of tribals with respect to their land and with respect to their customs, culture, right? Development works like dams, protected areas, etc. Right. So that is one area. So what you're saying is government can take away the land of the tribals. That is one correct answer. What other ways? What about private efforts to deprive a tribal of its lands? Can there be any private initiatives to deprive a tribal of its land? Can it be done? Land alienation by outsiders. That's correct. How does it actually happen? Earlier, during Britishers' times, it used to happen because of land settlement policies, right? Tribals not being able to pay their land rent, they have to give away their land, right? In today's India, we don't have zamindari system. So if that is the case, then how can tribal land be usurped by private outsiders? As I told you, the tribals are so fond of drinking, okay? You give them drink and they will be able to do anything for you. So these are some of my practical experiences of seeing tribal societies function. And so that is why, and many of the land, how if you know how it would have been, for example, in Odisha, we had a regulation called as OLR, Odisha Land Regulation, 1956. So it came in 1956. And before that, even during Britishers' time, if you actually observe how land was actually grabbed by outsiders, it used to be like this. They will come, they will give money at a high rate of interest. The tribal person will not be able to definitely repay the money. He is not enterprising. He has just borrowed money only to drink, nothing else. Okay, or to celebrate his to do a marriage function of his daughter or something. He would have borrowed some money, and he will definitely not be able to repay it. It's the golden opportunity for that outsider, Seths, Andhras, who have come from Andhra, settled in Odisha. Their only work is grabbing the land of tribals. So you give them money, they will not be able to pay. So that money that he would have got as a loan would not even be 1/20th of the actual land price of that land. But this person now, money lender, because he's not able to repay the money, he will just seize that land and he will take it with him. Okay, so that is why this practice of money lending, usury, you know usury, USURY, lending money at a high rate of interest. It is because of this practice, tribals slowly started losing their ownership of land. That is why, if the governor decides that this particular problem of money lending is very rampant in this particular state, if he decides so, he can make regulations to restrict money lending. Here and all, governor cannot, in Tamil Nadu, he cannot restrict money lending. I can just give my money for anybody at a particular rate of interest within stipulated limits. But in Odisha, that is not the case. Governor will completely prohibit money lending in tribal areas. And even if money, so he can prohibit or he can regulate money lending. Regulation with 3% interest, 4% interest, not more than that. And even if a money lender has to give interest to a tribal, land cannot be taken as a collateral. Maybe gold can be taken as a collateral, but land can never be taken as a collateral. So you are ensuring that under no circumstances can a tribal be deprived of his ownership of land. So all these are very interrelated aspects. Tribal culture, money lending, and ownership of land, all these are very interrelated. So protecting his land is the most important objective of 5th schedule, because of which the powers are given in the hands of governor. The governor may make regulations, prohibit or restrict the transfer of land by or among the members of scheduled tribes in such area. Yes. In Odisha, in these scheduled areas, non-ST, non-scheduled tribe cannot buy a land of scheduled tribe. Okay, but not the case in Tamil Nadu. In Tamil Nadu, anybody can sell anybody's land. But in Odisha, only a scheduled tribe person can buy a land of another scheduled tribe. Okay, even if your mother is, even if the mother of a tribal person is admitted in the hospital, okay, she is completely, you need 6 lakh rupees for a treatment. The tribal want to sell a part of his land so as to meet his mother's treatment expenses. Even then, it is such a difficult, cumbersome process. It's not easy. Okay, because otherwise it's very easy to fool a tribal. That is why these kind of excessive regulations have been made by the government. As I told you, governor can make such regulations prohibiting or restricting the transfer of land to other groups of people. Yes, he can do that. Okay, regulate the allotment of land to the members of scheduled tribes in such area. Maybe he can do that also. Regulate the carrying on money lending as a business. So that regulation can also be done. So we have such something else also. Regulations shall be submitted to the president until assented to by him shall have no effect. So any regulation made by the governor has to be accepted by the president. Only then it can have legal value. Okay, and as we have already discussed, tribes advisory council will be consulted, but it doesn't mean that the consultation will be a futile process. No, the consultation will carry due weight. The opinion will most probably implemented only. Okay, so this is all about 5th schedule areas. So these are some of the provisions of 5th schedule areas. So in your Lakshmikant, you will have data on which all states actually have scheduled areas. Maybe you can have a look at that. Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Odisha, Andhra Pradesh. So maybe I might Himachal Pradesh also. So have a look at your Lakshmikant, and you will be able to get the data on which all states today have scheduled areas. Okay. So what if you have a question in the examination? The power of governor to make regulations with respect to scheduled areas can be changed only by a amendment to the constitution under Article 368. What if a question is asked like this? What would be your answer? The power of governor to make regulations in tribal areas, in scheduled areas, can be changed by a constitutional amendment under Article 368. Will it be a right answer or wrong answer? True, but the answer is wrong. I don't know why I'm not able to spot it, but it is given somewhere. Okay, it is given in the constitution only. Any amendment to this part shall not be considered as deemed to be an amendment under Article 368. It would be given somewhere. I'm just not able to see that. Are you able to spot it anywhere? So you're not able to see. Okay. Maybe some other constitution or something. Can someone help me with that? Where is it given? shall be deemed to be an amendment. Yeah. Oh, yeah, it is here. It is here. It is here. Parliament may from time to time by law amend by way of addition, variation or repeal any provisions of the schedule, and when the schedule is so amended, any reference to the schedule shall be considered as a reference to such schedule as amended. That is power of the Parliament to amend this schedule, and it need not be done by a constitution amendment bill. By a simple majority it can be amended. No such law shall be deemed to be an amendment of this constitution for the purposes of Article 368. Just by passing an ordinary law, you will be able to, the Parliament will be able to amend the provisions of fifth schedule. That is what is actually given here. Okay. So these are some points that you have to remember. Definitely, this is not a topic to be asked in your mains examination. So no analysis or anything which is involved here. You just have to remember the various factual aspects. When it comes to fifth schedule, you have to know the reason why we have fifth schedule in the constitution, power of governor, power of president, because it is the president who can decide an area as a scheduled area, addition, or you can reduce the area, or you can take an area out of scheduled area. All that is done by the president. And power of the governor to restrict the law of legislature, or he can make regulations. Okay. Or he can make regulations. And you have to know about Tribes Advisory Council, its composition, you have to know. So in states like Tamil Nadu, as I told you, Tamil Nadu has a Tribes Advisory Council. But do we have 15 scheduled tribe MLAs in the state legislature? We don't have. If that is the case, then what is the solution? Even non-scheduled tribe MLAs can also be made as a part of Tribes Advisory Council. Okay. So remember, it's not strict that only scheduled tribe MLAs must be a member of TAC. If we don't have adequate 15 MLAs of scheduled tribes in the legislature, then in that case we can also have non-ST MLAs also as members of Tribes Advisory Council. So what are the functions of Tribes Advisory Council? This is all that you have to know with respect to fifth schedule areas. Okay. Power of the Parliament to amend fifth schedule includes the power to amend Article 244 by simple majority. Well, let me just have a look at it. What is Article 244? Oh yeah, 244 also talks about scheduled areas, I think, right? Yes. Yes, it can be done by an ordinary law. You're right. It can be done by a simple majority ordinary law. That is how these amendments have been done. Okay. Shall apply to the administration control of scheduled areas and scheduled tribes in any state other than. So all these kind of additions which have been made were all because of result of these Northeastern Areas Reorganization Act 1971 has inserted a particular word here. Where is it? For state of Assam. 3, 4, Meghalaya, Tripura and Mizoram. It is done by 49th Amendment Act, then State of Mizoram Act. So yes, it can be done even by a simple law also. And here it is 244A is even more categorical because it says itself, Parliament may by law. So it means that even by simple majority process also it can be amended. So yes. So this is all about fifth schedule. Are you clear about this? Can we proceed further? Well, it is simple. It is not difficult or anything. Do you have any difficulty? Did you understand whatever was taught? No doubts. So we'll proceed further. Okay. So now what I'll teach you is I'll teach you a concept called as PESA Act. Okay. Panchayat Extension to Scheduled Areas Act. It is fifth schedule. The areas given under fifth schedule are what are referred to as scheduled areas. Areas given in sixth schedule are not called as scheduled areas. Sir, please repeat the last point. You mean the doubt that was asked by her? Well, she asked if amendments can be made to Article 244 by simple law, or do you have to follow constitutional amendment process for that? So for that, my answer was you can even do it by a simple law of the parliament. That was the last point. Is that what you wanted to clarify? Okay. So, why do we actually require? See, look at the expansion of this. Panchayats extension to scheduled areas. Okay. So you are extending panchayats to scheduled areas. As I told you, scheduled areas means the areas coming under fifth schedule. But why do you have to extend panchayats to scheduled area? Because the constitution, in the chapter on panchayats, if you see that, it is explicitly given these panchayats will not apply to scheduled areas unless they are extended to scheduled area by a law of parliament. That is why parliament has created a law which is called as Panchayat Extension to Scheduled Areas Act, I think in 1996. So because of which now we have a Panchayat Raj institutions in even in these areas. As I told you, in the state of Odisha, in these scheduled area, tribal dominated districts, today even here you do have a Panchayat Raj institution. You have a 3-tier structure. But this panchayats is very different from the panchayats in other parts of the state. Panchayats in Tamil Nadu, the kind of structure, the reservation principles that you have here is very different from the panchayat structure and the reservations you have in these areas, because the normal provisions governing panchayats given in the constitution will not directly apply to these areas. Some modifications have been done. Parliament has created a very special act which is called as this particular act, so as to create Panchayat Raj institutions in these scheduled areas and other states also wherever there are scheduled areas. So let's try to find out how are the panchayats in these areas different from other areas. In other areas, you have Zilla Parishad, you have Mandal Panchayat, you have Gram Panchayat, right? Members, you have chairpersons. So, what is the reservation principle that is followed for members? When it comes to scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, can someone tell me what is the principle for reservation used here? How much of seats will be reserved in favor of SCs and STs across all 3 levels in proportion to population in that area, right? When it comes to scheduled areas, the principle is different. The principle is 50% seats mandatorily have to be reserved for scheduled tribes, so that no decision can be taken against the interest of the tribals. This is the reason why PESA Act has this kind of a provision. The reservation principle is different. When it comes to reservations in that particular panchayats, in all 3 levels, minimum of 50% of seats in all 3 levels must be reserved in favor of scheduled tribe. Okay. Now what about chairpersons? What about chairpersons? Here, what is the principle in normal areas, non-PESA areas? What is the principle for reservation of chairpersons seats in favor of SC and ST? %25%. When did I tell you 25%? 25%. Oh my God, why 25%? Have I ever told you 25%? Yes. Proportion to the population of SC, ST in that state. Correct. That's the correct answer. But when it comes to PESA areas, all the post of chairperson of Zilla Parishad, chairperson of Mandal Panchayat, Sarpanch at a Gram Panchayat, what Sarpanch at a Gram Panchayat level, 100% reserved for scheduled tribes. Non-tribals can never become a chairperson at any of the three levels in PESA areas. This is how the constitution tries to ensure that no decision of any of these bodies will go against the interest of, so not constitution, PESA Act ensures none of the decision in these bodies will be against the interest of tribals. This is a great advantage that is given to these areas by PESA Act. Okay, this is how the reservation principle differs. Apart from that, the reservation for women, that is all same. That will apply. But when it comes to reservation of STs, that will be this as per this formula. Okay. And one other difference that you will have to notice in terms of Panchayat Raj institutions in PESA areas is the importance that is given to Gram Sabha. In normal areas, Gram Sabhas are powerless. Okay, normal areas like Tamil Nadu and all, Gram Sabhas, they don't have any power on their own. And do you know what the Gram Sabhas actually do in Tamil Nadu? Vinisha, you tell me. You'd be aware of what happens in Gram Sabhas in Tamil Nadu. So what actually happens? Tell me in Gram Sabhas. Anybody else? What happens? I told you they are not directly involved in implementation. If that is the case, then what is the actual use of Gram Sabha then? Maybe audit. Okay. Yeah, you are very correct. Most of all people don't go for that meeting. That's very, very correct. Because they have nothing to do there. So that is why they don't go there. No one asks. People will not even know whether any meeting has even held or not. No idea about it. Because that's the state of Gram Sabhas in other areas, but not in PESA. In scheduled areas, Gram Sabhas are areas where people will fight with each other also. Gram Sabhas have been empowered to that extent in PESA areas. But in reality, in normal areas, in mainstream areas, Gram Sabhas are supposed to discuss. Critical analysis has to be made about the implementation of the government schemes. Why is this particular beneficiary chosen? Why is he not chosen? Just discuss. People are least interested about all these discussions. Maybe if a lunch is organized, they will come there. And MGNR, EGS, the law mandates that the schemes that are implemented in the village must be audited by the Gram Sabha. And Gram Sabha members must affix their signatures. So because of that, what actually happens is the block development officer, because there is a legal provision like that, he will organize a lunch. So please come and have food and go. When you have come to have food, just give your signatures. So that is how actual audit of MGNREGS actually happens in these Gram Sabhas. Otherwise, in normal areas, Gram Sabhas are completely powerless, not active, nothing. But in PESA, Gram Sabhas are the all in all. They are more powerful than any of these bodies. We have to know how are Gram Sabhas so powerful. In fact, these Gram Sabhas actually have members who are even more illiterate. The Gram Sabhas, who are the members of these Gram Sabhas? It's the tribals, basically. They have no idea about government schemes. They have no idea about government, what it means to mine for bauxite or aluminium in a particular area. They have no idea about that. But still, Gram Sabha has been empowered to such an extent in PESA areas because of the only caution that nothing happens against the interest of the tribals. So that is so much of importance that has been given to ensure Gram Sabha is made as a decisive body. How? What kind of decision making powers are given in the hands of Gram Sabha? Let's just have a look at them. In scheduled areas. So tomorrow, if Let's say Vedanta wants to come and mine. Okay, not Vedanta. Some private organization wants to come and extract methane and ethane in Kaveri Delta. Do you know who has to give permission for that? Or let's say I'm a private contractor. I want to mine quarry. I want to mine metals, stones from a quarry in a particular village. So do you know who I should go and ask for permission? If I'm a private contractor who wants to mine for resources, who should I go and approach to get the license to mine? Any answers? See, tomorrow you're going to become collectors, sub-collectors, right? So this is your main source of making money if you choose to be corrupt. Okay. You are the one who will be issuing license. Sub-collectors and collectors will issue license for quarrying and mining resources. If it's a minor minerals. If it's a major mineral, the route is entirely different. It has to come from the central government. Basically, it is the government body which is involved in giving licenses for mining. Okay, in normal areas. In normal areas, Gram Sabha, Gram Panchayat, nobody is involved in issuing license for mining. Not their function. But when it comes to PESA areas, it is Gram Sabha which has to consent. Let's say in Odisha there is a district called as Rayagada. Rayagada district is having abundant bauxite resources. Vedanta wanted to come and mine bauxite in Rayagada. Okay, and have you heard of this Niyamgiri? There's a hill called as Niyamgiri. Have you ever come across that? This bauxite mining issue of Vedanta in Niyamgiri, when it is based on that incident only. Avatar movie was actually shot by James Cameron. Okay, that big hill which the tribals consider as their forefathers, all of them are there. They have that cultural attachment to that hill, and it's under that hill entire bauxite reserves are there. Vedanta wanted to come, mine it, sell it, make profits. But because of people's protest, because PESA Act was there, the Gram Sabhas were not giving permission. Okay, so it was such a kind of a powerful legislation has been there, PESA, which gives power in the hands of Gram Sabha. Whichever Gram Sabha is in the area where mining has to take place, all those Gram Sabhas must give consent. Only then, even any minor mineral or any other mineral can actually be extracted from those areas. So this is the kind of power that has been given in the hands of Gram Sabhas in PESA areas first. Next is when it comes to choosing beneficiaries of government schemes. So if you want to get a ration card in Tamil Nadu, all you need to do is you have to go and apply with the government, or you have to go and meet the block development officer. He will take care of all the application process and all these things. You will get a ration card. If you want a Pradhan Mantri Awas, you want a house for you, you have to go to the block office, apply. Based on the priority, you will be given a house, but not in PESA areas. PESA areas, block development officer himself cannot take a decision unless the Gram Sabha approves who is a beneficiary and who is not a beneficiary. Why does it actually happen? Because you see, let's say government, Narendra Modi announces this year, I'm going to give houses for all homeless people. Okay, this is what Narendra Modi makes as his election promise. But with the kind of, so do you think in 1 year itself, entire India will become homeless free country? It cannot, because government does not have so much of money. Maybe this is the plan of the government for the next 10 years. That is the plan. Within the span of next 10 years, we will provide house for everybody. Slowly, as more and more revenue is collected by the government, it will allocate targets. In this year, we will build 1 crore houses. Next year, 1 crore houses. That 1 crore will be divided all across the country. So in one village, probably 10 houses can be constructed in that particular financial year, 2021 to 2022. So who will be the beneficiary of these 10 houses? It happens in tribal societies. First of all, tribals they are least bothered about government schemes first. They are not very demanding or anything. They will not come to the government office and they will demand, give me my right. No, they are not of that nature. So usually what happens is the general caste, the dominant society caste groups, they will all get the house first. Maybe then OBCs will get, then SCs will get. By the time the tribals even uh, they would automatically become eligible to get a house. By then the scheme itself will be scrapped because the next government might take over. That is why this is also another reason why none of the schemes tend to benefit the tribals. They lack that voice because of so many issues. The sarpanch himself is not actually a real sarpanch. He is a proxy for a general caste person. If that is the case, then what kind of can the sarpanch actually champion the rights of these tribals? No, he will not do it. He is actually not a representative of the tribals only in the first place. So it is to prevent these problems. If for this financial year 10 houses have to be allotted, who are these beneficiaries will be identified only by the Gram Sabha, so that the interest of the tribal groups are not actually, it is not actually affected. This is some advantage that you will find find with the Gram Sabha in PESA areas. Okay. So similarly, you have so many such other, you will have a long list of other functions also, what all Gram Sabhas can actually do. And yes, another power given in the hands of Gram Sabha is with respect to ownership over community resources like fishing ponds, okay, like grazing grounds. Fishing pond in Tamil Nadu, let's say a village has a 10-acre huge fishing pond is there, okay, very abundant source of fish is available. So I, as a private contractor, I want to take lease of this land, this tank. So I'll take lease for 2 years. Okay, I'll make a calculation. This much amount of fish I can catch. So I can maybe make 20 lakh rupees per year. In 2 years, I can make 40 lakhs. So I can take the tank on lease from the government. So here the entire control is in the hands of the Tahsildar. Tahsildar is a custodian of government land. So this is a government land where there is a fishing pond. Tahsildar will do an auction. He will do the auction, and whoever bids the highest amount of money, they will be given control of this tank for maybe 2 years or 3 years, whatever may be the auction period. So they have to pay money, right? But in Gram Sabha, this cannot happen by Tahsildar. Unless the Gram Sabha is okay with this fishing pond being given out for auctions, until then, even community resources like fishing ponds, they can also not be just like that. It cannot be auctioned by the government. So what I'm trying to say is, the Gram Sabha is more empowered. It has more control over their own resources within that particular village when compared to the Gram Sabha of normal areas. This is the kind of autonomy that we actually find with Gram Sabhas in these areas. Okay. So compared to normal areas, the PESA Act has ensured that Gram Sabha's role is much more significant in 5th schedule areas. So this is all about PESA, the reservation principle, extra powers given to Gram Sabhas in PESA areas. This is all that you have to remember. The next idea here we have to discuss is about 6th schedule, tribal areas. As I told you, these areas are completely outside the control of the mainstream normal governments. Okay, what is the difference between minor mineral and major mineral? Okay, is bauxite minor? No, bauxite is not a minor mineral, it is a major mineral. I'm just saying, so there, I'm just saying that in Odisha, the bauxite Niyamgiri incident was because of excessive mobilization done by Gram Sabhas. The tribal people rose in protest against land being given to Vedanta. So it's not because, no, it is not because Gram Sabhas did not consent to it. That was not the reason. I'm just saying the power of Gram Sabhas is so much that the tribal people were able to be mobilized against the company. All right. But no, bauxite is not a minor mineral. Minor minerals are like sand, stones. These are minor minerals. So it is for those purposes where the Gram Sabha's consent has to be taken for mining. In that incident, it was tribals who became united. They protested against the government giving out their lands. So they were ready to, I mean, just like how it happened in Sterlite case in Tamil Nadu. They were just sitting there protesting against the government, and the government had no other option than to rescind the order that was actually passed by them. So do anyone from outside can go and settle in that regions, that is tribal areas? Of course, you can go and reside in these areas, but you cannot purchase land. You can even purchase lands also. Not all lands are owned by tribals. Even general category people will also own lands. Okay, scheduled caste will also own lands. So you can buy the land of other category of people. You cannot just buy the land of scheduled tribe people. Okay, so yes, there is no restriction on other people going and settling down in those areas. We don't have such kind of restrictions at all. So the next concept is about sixth schedule tribal areas. You find even more autonomy for sixth schedule tribal areas. So where do we actually find sixth schedule tribal areas? We have 4 states today where you have six scheduled tribal areas: Assam, Meghalaya, and Tripura. I think the other one is Mizoram. Is it Mizoram or Manipur? Yeah, Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura, and Mizoram. So these are the 4 states. These are the 4 states where you actually have sixth schedule tribal areas. Okay, so how are tribal sixth schedule areas different from fifth schedule areas? Too much of autonomy and too much of power. One significant difference that you will find between these two areas is sixth schedule tribal areas, they also have judicial powers. As I told you, their lifestyle is totally different. No Hindu Marriage Act, no Special Marriage Act, nothing. They have their own custom of marriages, divorces. You cannot govern them under our own rules and laws. Okay, but in fifth scheduled areas, the tribes have more or less become mainstreamed. More or less become mainstream, so they can be governed under normal laws. But sixth schedule areas, their punishments for divorce, everything is governed under their own laws. So that is why you will find limited judicial powers also in the hands of sixth schedule tribal areas. They have bodies which will be created for that purpose. Each village will have a body called as village council. Okay, let's say this is Meghalaya. You have 3 autonomous districts. It doesn't mean that the entire state of Meghalaya is called as sixth scheduled tribal area. In the state of Meghalaya, you have 3 districts where there are 3 prominent tribes: Kashi, Garo, and Jain Shia. So there are 3 different tribal groups, predominant tribal groups, for whom to let them control their own matters is important. That is why we have autonomous district: Kashi autonomous district, Garo autonomous district. So we have these kind of autonomous districts, okay, independent districts. So each district will have its own body called as autonomous district councils. These are district level bodies, and below that you will have villages, right? For villages you have village councils. So it is these bodies which will take care of the functions which are performed by the panchayats. So what functions? It's almost the same kind of functions. When you go through the sixth schedule provisions, you will come across the same kind of functions that you will find in normal panchayats. And another difference, another power, another significant power in the hands of these bodies. One is they have judicial powers to a limited extent. The other function, other power compared to other fifth schedule provisions is that they also have power of levying taxes. This is a constitutional principle. But in panchayats, they don't automatically have the power of levying taxes. They don't have that. It is only if state legislature makes a law empowering the panchayats to levy tax, only then the panchayats can levy. But not the case of village councils or autonomous district councils. They even have the power of levying taxes. You use a market complex, they can levy tax themselves. Okay, they can levy tax for fishing, which is not the power of panchayats in normal areas. If somebody wants to fish in a pond in a village in Nagaland, sorry, not Nagaland, what is it? Meghalaya. In that case, you have to pay the tax that is levied by the village council. Okay, which is not the case in Odisha. You can just go and catch fish from a pond there. Nobody can stop you. But not the case in these autonomous district councils. So this is, won't a body of dominant tribes induce majoritarianism? Yes, it does. So if you actually go to these places, you will find that they are very warring tribes. They cannot stand the sight of each other. That is the custom there, but not the case in fifth scheduled areas. That is why these areas are treated differently. That is why mostly how it happens in these areas is it will be a very homogeneous unit. Only Kasi tribes will be there in that districts. Other tribes will not even live there because they don't have the culture or the practice of harmonious coexistence. No, they will kill each other to death. So that is how the societies have been organized. Okay, so this is a difference when you compare to fifth scheduled areas. That is why these kind of powers have been given to them. The power to regulate their own matters. Okay, so if it does not affect others, because the society is so homogeneous, then there is no concern. That is why such powers have been given to these bodies. Well, I'm sure the constitution makers also would have thought about all these issues, and they would have decided that maybe they are relatively more homogeneous compared to the fifth scheduled area, so there is no problem. Let them be given the powers to dictate how marriages should be done, how divorces should be done. Let them have their own customs of doing it, right? So who has the power to constitute these autonomous district councils, autonomous districts? If maybe one more tribe, very small in number, but once their number becomes large, they may also demand for an autonomous district for themselves. If that is the case, who has the power under 6th schedule of the constitution to decide to create more autonomous districts? The power is in the hands of the governor of that particular state. Governor of that state will decide on autonomous districts. Okay. So these are the broad differences in 5th schedule and 6th schedule areas as given in the constitution. So what are the functions? It is all given in the 6th schedule of the constitution. So as I told you, this is 6th schedule, where Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura, Mizoram, and so if there are different scheduled tribes in an autonomous district, governor may by public notification divide the area or areas inhabited by them into autonomous regions. So that also answers your question. If there are many groups there, governor will make separate autonomous districts for each of the tribes. Because the basis of 6th schedule of the constitution is homogeneity of tribal practices, tribal groups. Okay. So it's a power of governor to include, exclude, create a new one, increase, diminish the size, all that is given in paragraph 1 of 6th schedule. Okay. So constitution of district councils and regional council. You don't have to be confused about the words regional council. Basically, region means multiple districts together will be called as a region. That's all. So you become a collector of a district. After 10 years after becoming a collector, you will become a regional divisional commissioner, RDC. A region means it includes 4 or 5 districts together. So the lower body is village council. Next in above is an autonomous district council. So 4 or 5 autonomous district councils can all be brought under a superior body called as a regional council. That is what it means. Okay. So what is the membership is also mentioned. There shall be a district council for each autonomous district consisting of not more than 30 members, of whom not more than 4 members shall be nominated by governor. Rest shall be elected on the basis of adult suffrage. So you have to know this. 4 members nominated, other members are elected. Okay. So there are so many provisions. The 6th schedule provisions are too big. Okay. Maybe you can go through it at your leisure. And it's about what is given here is who has the power to delimit the constituencies for the purpose of holding elections. Out of 30 members, 4 are nominated, remaining 26 have to be elected. So how will they be elected? Who has the powers to make rules for deciding upon the size of the constituencies for elections? All that. The governor, okay, governor has the powers to do that. So you will have all these provisions here. What are the powers of district councils and regional councils? Yes, powers to make laws. This is another function, making laws. Laws governing how education has to be done given in that particular autonomous district council, how marriage has to be done. Power to make laws is not even there in the hands of panchayats, neither in the hands of Zilla Parishad, neither in the hands of Mandal Panchayat. They are not laws. Okay, so this is very extraordinary power given in the hands of these bodies in these areas. As I told you, you move towards more and more autonomy. Starting from normal areas, fifth schedule areas, sixth schedule tribal areas, you give them more and more powers. This is the direction of progression. Okay. So I mean, there is just too many things here which I don't think is really necessary for your exam. And this is about the functions which will be performed by village councils and district councils. It is almost similar to the same functions of 11th schedule. Whatever panchayats perform, you will find the similar functions here. Mostly it is the same functions. Okay. So, and even within these autonomous districts, some special provisions, some special privileges have been given, like Bodoland Territorial Council in Assam. It will have some specific set of powers compared to normal other autonomous districts. I don't really think it is possible to remember each and every difference here. Not possible. I would say broadly confined to the headings. Just understand, oh, this power is there in the hands of autonomous district council. They can make laws. They can give punishments. Criminal punishments also can be given by them. So whatever is there in Lakshmikant, you just try to know that. I don't really think you have to go through each and every point of this sixth schedule. That won't be really necessary. Okay. So they can take care of Jum cultivation. All those things are there. Administration of justice in autonomous district and autonomous regions. Okay. So one thing that you can actually notice here is, let's say a punishment is given by the village council because I have been involving in adultery. Okay, let's say, for example, I'm involving in adultery and my wife goes and complains to this village council that I'm doing this. So the village council gives a kind of a punishment. Maybe it asks me to pay a fine, or I don't know what their customs and practices are. But if a punishment is given, you cannot go on an appeal to district court. You cannot go and access the mainstream judicial institutions. If you're agreed by the decision of the village council, you have to go to the district council. If you are aggrieved still by the district council, you have to go to the regional council. So this is how justice is given. And you should just know that the village councils, district councils have the power to adjudicate petty criminal matters, not serious matters. Murder and all they cannot try. Okay. So you can just know that. Yeah, some powers. That's what to allow them to carry out the powers, judicial powers. Some provisions of CRPC, CPC can be delegated to them. I mean, they can be empowered that they are also courts to try these categories of offenses. That is what is given here. So that is one power. So as I told you, the government has to notify what powers, what punishments under CRPC, what crimes under CRPC can be tried by these village councils. Okay, only those crimes, those kind of offenses can be tried. So that is what is given in conferment of powers under CPC and CRPC. Okay, on certain courts and trial for certain suits, cases and offenses. Okay, power of district council to establish primary schools. So you will have all these provisions here. So they can even do that also. And the power of raising taxes. That is what district and regional funds. There shall be constituted for each autonomous district a district fund, autonomous region, a regional fund. Okay, to which shall be credited all monies received by the district council for that district. So basically, you're constituting a fund for district level and for regional level. Whatever taxes, user charges is all collected shall be deposited to that particular fund. And whatever money is made from the consolidated fund of the state for the administration of these autonomous district councils, that will also be credited to this particular fund. So you have such kind of provisions, and you can go through it. I think you can just go through whatever is given in Lakshmikant and just have an idea about it. Don't have to go through this in detail. Okay. Have you got a broad idea of how sixth schedule areas are different from fifth schedule areas? Is there no TAC here? No. Tribes Advisory Council is a concept only in 5th scheduled areas, not in 6th scheduled areas. 6th scheduled areas, you have only 3 bodies: village council, district council, regional councils. So you don't have any advisory bodies or anything, because here everything is autonomous. They will make their own laws, okay, and the law of state legislature and all will not even apply to these areas. So that is why we don't have a tribes advisory council in 6th scheduled areas. Why governor has more role in 6th schedule areas compared to 5th schedule? Why do you say so? Governor has more role, because maybe I can say why you could have asked this question: why governor has lesser role in 5th schedule compared to 6th schedule? Because 5th schedule is more or less it is mainstream. You don't have a separate district fund, okay? You don't have separate elections to be conducted there. Nothing. All that needs to be done is whether a state law can be applied to scheduled area or not. That is the only caution that needs to be exercised. That's all. That is the only function that a governor has to perform there. In addition to that, he can make regulations over ownership of land and restricting money lending. Apart from this 3 functions, the governor in a scheduled area, 5th scheduled area state, he doesn't have any other protective role towards the tribals. But here that is not the case. Here each and every, they have judicial powers, they have their own taxation powers, they have their own bodies which will be constituted by elections in a very different manner. So for all that, you have to have someone who will take care of those activities, right? Responsibility over these activities. That is why governor has more functions to perform in 6th scheduled areas and less functions to perform in 5th scheduled areas. So will you go through your Lakshmikant provisions regarding 6th schedule? Because it is not possible to teach you every point in 6th schedule given in the constitution, okay? That is not going to work out. So you will have to go through the main points. Actually, what is given in Lakshmikant is the headings. That is what is given: power to levy tax, power to establish schools, power to have control over fishing ponds, community resources, power to give punishments. This is how it will be given in Lakshmikant. Just read that much alone. You don't have to go beyond that. Powers with respect to tribal areas are subject to other provisions of the constitution, sir. For example, can they impose taxes that restrict interstate trade? No, they cannot. Only those powers which are given there. So the power of law making doesn't mean that they can actually go and restrict interstate trade and commerce. They can make laws about how the market complexes, who is allowed to entry into market complexes, who can make use of the facilities, who can enter into maybe the religious structures of their area. So those kind of matters they can make laws. It doesn't mean that they can make laws on army or interstate trade and commerce. They cannot do that. The power of lawmaking is confined within the functions that are given under 6th schedule of the constitution. Maybe old age, how they should be taken care of. Maybe those kind of matters they can make laws. So in case TAC misuse their power, and if such a recommendation will be approved by governor, since TAC has more SC people, ST people, they are 3/4. Okay. Well, you cannot assume that TAC will misuse their power. It is just like assuming that. So I'll ask you, what if your elected representatives in the parliament, they are coming up with Citizenship Amendment Act, they are coming up with farm laws? So do you say that they are misusing their powers? That is their role. Maybe you may not accept what they are doing. So if you find that they are misusing, then let them be defeated in the next elections. Similarly, so TAC members, it is expected that they will not, how can they work against the interests of the tribals? If they work against the interests of the tribals, maybe next election they will no longer even be the MLAs representing STs. Some other person will be there who can be elected as a ST MLA. So you cannot assume that TAC will give recommendations against the interest of tribals. No. So that is a trust that you should actually have on institutions. You cannot go on creating one layer of check over each and every institution. So what is the other way around now? The other solution that you actually have? If TAC gives us a recommendation that is against the interest of the tribals, they will not. Can you say that the parliament will make law against the interest of Indians? No, it doesn't, right? Same is the way. So you cannot suspect TAC that they will misuse their powers. No, not necessary. If they provide more balance to SC people than needed. Sorry, I don't understand the question. So we'll take a 5-minute break. We'll continue after that. Okay, after 5 minutes. Meanwhile, you can go through Lakshmikant. See if you have any doubts about sixth schedule. Okay, so a few doubts have been asked. TAC committee members, if they favor their people, that is by recommending more than what is needed for their people, then it will also be approved by governor. Well, these are all hypothetical questions. Okay, I cannot really answer them. I don't understand what do you mean by TAC. See, TAC, Tribes Advisory Council. Let's say Odisha wants to regulate drinking. Okay, and to regulate drinking, the Odisha government makes a law. Whether that law should apply to a tribal area or not. A governor has no idea about the tribal culture. For that, he has been given a body called as Tribes Advisory Council, which will give the governor the advice whether this law should be applied or not. I don't understand what can be the manner in which the TAC can favor the tribes. I don't understand the manner. How do you say Tribes Advisory Council will actually favor tribals here? Protect their interest is why Tribes Advisory Council itself has been created, right? Okay. Why there is a variation in power of direction of parliament or state laws? Assam governor decides, others what is the way? Sorry, Assam governor decides, others both president and governor decides on their respective domains. Okay, what you're asking is, what Archana is asking is, in scheduled areas, fifth scheduled areas, we have seen that the laws of state legislature will be applicable to the scheduled areas if governor extends it, right? So in these autonomous districts, in sixth scheduled tribal areas, the constitution says Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura, Mizoram. For these states, a law made by parliament, whether it is extended to sixth scheduled tribal area, the deciding authority is the president. When it comes to a law made by the state legislature, whether this is extendable to this area or not, this has to be decided by the governor. Okay. But when it comes to Assam, both parliamentary law as well as a state legislature law, whether it has to be applied to the autonomous districts, this is to be decided by governor. So she's asking why only in Assam, governor itself decides both the laws, whether it is applicable to the autonomous districts, whereas in these three areas, president decides on parliamentary law and governor decides on state legislatures. Okay, that's a good question. Well, I have not thought on these lines, but I think my inference would be maybe these areas need more of protection. Maybe these areas need more serious attention than the autonomous districts of Assam. The tribals are even more autonomous in their way of life, and that is why you need an authority like a stature of president himself to decide whether a union law should be applicable to these areas or not. That should be the reason, correct? Otherwise, the powers could have been given in the hands of governor itself. Maybe the matter is even more serious, that even more higher authority should be the deciding authority if a law should be applied to these areas. So which means that there should be the reverse inference, that the tribals here are different maybe in their way. Maybe the autonomous districts in Assam have tribals who are much more mainstreamed compared to these areas. So maybe let a lower level of official like a governor be the deciding authority. But when it comes to these areas, let the highest authority be the deciding authority. That should be the logical answer. But I have not thought on these lines. What does it mean by they do not fall outside the executive authority of the states in sixth schedule? States executive actually implements the policies decided by autonomous councils, or autonomous councils are subject to the executive directions of the state. Okay, what does it mean by they do not fall outside the executive authority of the states in sixth schedule? That is, polis. Don't you think? So what it actually says is, Mizoram state polis, will they work in autonomous district councils or not? Or do you think autonomous district councils will have their own police force? Do you think the state government will recruit nurses, trained doctors to take care of healthcare in these autonomous districts, or even that will also be done by autonomous district village council. They themselves will have their own doctors. Even if the doctor goes and performs a surgery without even due qualification, can it be accepted that he has not caused a murder? Can it be allowed? You cannot, right? That is why the normal executive authority of the state, let it be healthcare, let it be law and order, policing, all those things will actually apply to these district councils also. Okay, just because they have been given the power to make laws on certain matters, it doesn't mean that the executive authority of the police will not even apply to these areas. The executive authority of the health department will not apply to autonomous districts. That cannot be the case. Okay, so that is what is meant in that particular provision of sixth schedule. So what are the moral benefits in reality of becoming a civil servant? Well, I don't understand the question. Can you be very specific? What are the moral benefits of becoming the civil servant? You mean benefit? Moral benefit? It's an interesting question. Okay, you're asking what is the feel-good factor of becoming a civil servant? That is what you're asking? Yes, okay. You mean in a good way? See, I can answer the question in very different ways. One feel-good factor is, of course, the prestige and the status that you would acquire once you become a civil servant. So that is one way of taking the answer. Is that what you have in your mind about that? Because you added a word moral benefits. So I think you had something bigger than that. You mean to say, do you find any satisfaction? Okay, you mean to say satisfaction of working as a civil servant? That is what you are referring to? Okay, helping others. All right, all right. Well, definitely a lot of satisfaction. Okay, many instances of being satisfied you will get when you are in the civil service. Not in other civil services, only in the IAS, to some extent in the IPS, not in any other services. Other services you will only feel like a corporate employee. You will only feel like you're going to your office, working from 10 to 5, coming back home. That's the feel, because no public interaction. But only in IAS, 90, and I mean the greatest satisfaction is only in the IAS, to a limited extent in IPS. So yes, many satisfaction. I cannot even limit it. When 30 people, they come running to you early in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, they come running to your home. They are waiting outside for you. Why? Because during the entire, this is an incident which happened to me in reality. In the sense, the district where I was posted was a very communally sensitive district. The name of the district is Kandamal. Okay, Kandamal in Odisha. Very poor, very backward, very tribal, geographically very isolated, but a beautiful place. Winters in Kandamal are amazing. 1 degree, 2 degrees, that is the temperature in the district. Very beautiful, picturesque place, but it has its own set of problems. And a lot of Naxal affected also, and communally sensitive caste problems, scheduled caste versus scheduled tribe, a perennial problem in most of the districts in Odisha. In this district, it is even more amplified. Religious problem also, Hindu versus Christians. You would have heard about the Odisha killings and all, where Hindus went on a rampage, started killing Christian missionaries and Christians. So that also happened in that district. So once this incident happened in the morning, 6 o'clock, when 20 people from a village with their small children, breastfeeding children, so such infants, come at 6 o'clock in the freezing cold, come outside. Why have they come? Because they are scheduled caste people, and the entire area, that locality, was actually dominated by scheduled tribes. And these scheduled castes, they have actually converted to Christianity. Once they have converted to Christianity, now there is a communal conflict also there. So the scheduled tribes, they created some issue there. Scheduled tribes, they have this feeling that we are the sons of the soil. Scheduled castes have come from outsiders. They are outsiders. There are always politics, like how you have Nam Tamil Katchi here. They also have their own local Koi Samaj and all those kind of tribal political organizations who will whip up such sons of the soil passions in the minds of tribals. So night to night, what they did, they burned the houses of these scheduled caste people. So once these SC people, they will go to the police will not take any action. Go to Tahsildar, no action. Because they are all state employees. They are completely controlled by pressures and of the tribal MLA there. So scheduled caste will not actually get a justice there. Then the MLA will lose the support of the scheduled tribe population there. So the only relief finally for them is the authority like me, who's sitting there, who's an outsider, who is not influenced by the local politics, who has nothing to gain out of favoring one group over the other. So that is why outside officers, they get a greater sense of satisfaction because I'm not blaming that insiders are all biased. No, I'm just saying outsiders have lesser reasons to be biased. So because of which you can actually speeden up the process of justice mechanism. So once it comes to a ear of the sub-collector and the sub-collector orders the police to file a case, then immediate justice is actually given. That is just one instance of satisfaction. And there are so many such instances. So, and these people when they come with, they have nothing in their hand. Somehow they have just come to my residence. They don't even have the money to go back to their village also. That is the poverty levels of people in states like Odisha, which you might not even have imagined or visualized in your lives. Maybe once you go get into the services, you will be able to see that in person. So yes, so you're answering your question, definitely a lot of satisfaction you can get. Why are you asking this question all of a sudden? Is there any reason to do with the topic that is being discussed? Okay, some personal issues. All right. Okay. And another benefit of becoming a civil servant is you will come to actually understand the reality of the system and the society properly. Otherwise, you will only be in your own world, blaming things, pointing fingers at others for the problem of the society. But after some time, you'll come to realize the reality. When you actually when you do things and you understand how actually politics is. So I don't know whether I have discussed dilemma. I used to discuss with the other batches. Have I discussed with you guys about the dilemma of municipal commissioner? Have I discussed any time with you about that? With other batches I have discussed. So this is an ethics case study. Will it be okay to take some time out and discuss about that if you don't have an issue? Or otherwise we can continue with special states. Maybe another 5 more minutes. Okay, all right. So you can take this as your ethics case study also. I just want you to think on this. Basically, I was posted as a municipal commissioner, corporation commissioner. So similar to that, a smaller body is called as municipality. So I was posted as a commissioner there. And I'll tell you what the dilemma was. You have mayor or you have a chairperson, okay? They are the political authorities. And you have the council, the decision-making authority. So laying road development, okay? Maybe they wanted to develop a tar road for half kilometer, okay? Maybe the project maybe for 25 or 30 lakhs. This is the size of the project. So who will decide that a road work will be taken up? Can an IAS officer decide? I will build a road from this stretch to that stretch. As an IAS officer, I go on a visit in the city. I find broken roads. Can I, as an IAS officer, decide to build road from this stretch to that stretch? Can it be done or can it not be done? What do you actually think? Yes, tell me. Yes. Okay. Yes. Can be done. Well, if I can decide that, then why do you have to have elected representatives? It is the councillors. They are the representatives of the people. They are the ones who will decide what is good, what is bad. As a bureaucrat, as an IAS officer, my work is to ensure that the road built is of proper quality. It is of proper standard. Money is not misappropriated. That is my work. My work is not to decide what is good and bad for the people. because I am not voted by them. I am not popularly elected. Okay, so it's a council which has decided that a road has to be built from point A to point B, and it has decided that out of our funds 30 lakh rupees will be spent for this purpose. Okay, all right. So usually officers, as a commissioners, municipal commissioners, they will hardly monitor 10% of the work, total work. 10% they will monitor, because there is a legal duty. Whatever work is implemented, 10% should be monitored. So they will just comply with that 10% alone. So when I was going monitoring the different works, I decided out of randomly, I chose this particular work. Okay, come, let's go to the spot and let's see how the work has been done. So I took my engineers and everybody. So all of them were giving some strange reactions. So I went in my car, got down there. Then I saw that there is no road there. Okay, or I can say that there is no new road there. There was already a road which is very, very old, which was there. So they expected, see, if it is a non-IAS officer who's a commissioner, it's very easy. You just give him some 1 lakh rupees, or okay, if what the project is 30 lakh, maybe give him 50,000 rupees. So he will turn a blind eye to it, just give a signature. Okay. But IAS officers, we are somewhat more honest and integral. So naturally, we tend to visit. So these guys will also not offer any bribe or anything. If they know about your reputation, they will not do all those mischief. They did not speak only in the first place. Okay, they just silently came. When I went there, no road was there, but already the first, and this 30 lakh bill will not be given in one stretch. It will be given in 3 installments. When at the beginning of the work, maybe after half of the work is completed, then at the final bill will be given. So first bill is already passed and paid. So this is for the second bill, 8 lakh rupees or some. For that, the file has come to me. I wanted to check the work before passing the payment. So I went there. No new road is there. It was already existing road. Then I looked at them. I asked them, where is the road? They did not give any answers. After talking to them, I came to understand the reality of what is happening. The reality is that this money of 30 lakh that is being spent on this road is not spent for this road. What it was spent on, there is an orphanage. Okay, this orphanage is actually run by the MLA's brother. Okay, he is running this orphanage. Inside that orphanage, cement pavement work was done for 30 lakh rupees. So this money, which was actually shown as if a new road was built, and that road was also somewhere close by here only. So this entire money was spent for laying payment in this orphanage. So the justification that they're giving is, sir, it is for orphans. So we are not taking it and putting it in our pockets, sir. It is for orphans only, for public welfare, public good. So please turn a blind eye, just pass the bill. Okay, so this is the dilemma. All right. So, this case study you discussed, maybe, see, if it is discussed, you should have stopped me before itself. You have wasted some time then. Okay, all right. Well, okay. So did you find an answer for this then? What would you be doing if I have already discussed it? Have you have you made peace with yourself about what would be your course of action? Oh, you have decided? Okay, good. Okay. Okay, then I'm not discussing any further. Okay, maybe you know the answer for that also. All right. Sir, but I didn't hear it before. Thank you. Can you complete it? Well, that's all. This is the case study. So what would you as an officer do? Will you turn a blind eye and will you allow the bill payments to be released? Or will you escalate these matters, and what would be the next course of action? So that is the question. What would be the consequences? Okay. If it is decided, if it is already discussed, then I don't want answers also. So you can think about it, and you can find solutions for that, which can actually be helpful for you at later point of time in your life. Okay. So we'll move on to the next topic, which is special states, special provisions for certain states. there are certain special provisions for certain parts of certain states. What are those states? You have Andhra Pradesh. In Karnataka, you have special provisions. Maharashtra, you have special provisions. Gujarat, you have certain special provisions. And many northeast states. Nagaland, Nagaland will be here somewhere. Nagaland, you have special provisions. I don't know about the map. Mizoram also has some special provisions. Goa has some special provisions. So what do you think could be the reasons why certain states have special provisions in the constitution? Why? Why do you think so? Why do you think certain states must be given some special provision, special treatment, unlike normal states? What should be the reason? Jammu Kashmir is a different case altogether. Okay, we will discuss it later. Backwardness of specific regions in those states. That's very correct answer. Very, very correct. So one reason why special provisions are given is to get rid of the backwardness in certain parts of the states because of historical reasons, because of when the state was newly formed, certain poor parts of the adjoining areas were brought in and kept as a part of the state. So some special efforts have to be given to develop the backward regions of these states. That is one reason. Next, any other reasons? Okay, this criteria will apply to Karnataka, Gujarat, Maharashtra, and Andhra Pradesh, certain parts. Erstwhile Andhra Pradesh, not the present Andhra Pradesh, erstwhile Andhra Pradesh, the united Andhra Pradesh. So backwardness is the criteria for these states. I accept that. Yeah, Sikkim also. Sikkim is also one other state. So what other reasons? The other reasons are security and law and order. This is one other criteria. And another reason, with respect to Goa, with respect to Sikkim, with respect to Mizoram, Arunachal Pradesh, the reason is so Sikkim's population is maybe 3 lakhs, 4 lakhs, and to have and the population criteria to have one MP in Lok Sabha is around 15 lakhs. It's only for 15 lakh people you will be represented with one MP. If that is the case, do you think Sikkim can even have one MP? Is it possible? LO means law and order, security and law and order. So if you go by the normal principles of representation, if 15 lakh people have to be represented with one MP, do you think it is possible in Sikkim to even have one MP? Will it be possible? If there is no MP for Sikkim, then who will represent the interest of the people of Sikkim then? Who will then represent the interest of the Sikkim, problems of Sikkim? Who is there to talk about those issues in the parliament? Nobody. That is why you have to create a special provision. You have to ensure that there will be at least one MP representing Sikkim in Lok Sabha. So you are basically you're bypassing these special provisions are there so as to bypass other provisions of the constitution. For example, when you read state legislature, I'm sure many of you would have already read state legislatures. Do you know what is the minimum size of state legislature? Tamil Nadu State Assembly has a size of 234, right? 235. So, Constitution prescribes a minimum floor limit to the size. There is upper ceiling limit to the size of the state legislative assembly. Do you know about what are those limits? 40 members. No. It is 60 members as the lower limit. And what is the upper limit? That's very correct. 60 and 500 is the upper limit. But a state like Arunachal Pradesh might have the population of 6 lakh people. In Tamil Nadu, for 6 lakh people, you will probably have 3 MLAs. That's all. So can you then constitute a state assembly? So if the minimum threshold is 60, and if you were to create a 60 member assembly for Arunachal Pradesh, 10,000 people will be represented by one MLA, which is not actually necessary at all. That is why there are certain situations like Sikkim or Goa or Mizoram or Arunachal Pradesh where the population is so less that you do not actually require 60 members. Maybe 30 members are required. Maybe 40 members are required, not more than that. Since you are breaching these limits, that is why Constitution itself provides for special exceptions, special provisions for some states. That is the reason why we have some special provisions. These are the reasons: backwardness, security, and law and order issues. This is the criteria which is applicable in Nagaland. In Nagaland as well as in Arunachal Pradesh, the function of governor is somewhat different from the normal constitutional function. Normally, governor is supposed to act on the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers. Yes? Will you accept that? Tomorrow, if there is a protest going on, because governor is the head of the executive at the state level, if a group of protesters are protesting outside the Sterlite plant here in Thuthukudi, do you think governor himself will direct the DGP, go fire at the protesters? Do you think he will do that in Tamil Nadu? Will it not be based on the aid and advice of the chief minister and his council? So, the governor is supposed to act on the aid and advice of Council of Ministers. But in the case of Nagaland or Arunachal Pradesh, governor need not act on the aid and advice of Council of Ministers, because the region is so because you cannot trust the chief minister only in the first place. The chief minister himself might work against the security of Nagaland, because the chief minister might be from the same tribe as the Naga insurgents are, right? He may be from the same ethnic background as the rebels or terrorists from Myanmar might belong to. That is why in places like Nagaland, because it borders Myanmar, and Arunachal Pradesh, because it borders China, you cannot trust the elected group of ministers at least with law and order issues. Maybe other issues, let it be on the aid and advice of Council of Ministers. But when it comes to security and law and order matters, governor will act independently. He need not act on the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers. So this is one kind of an exception that is being provided in the Constitution under Article 371. That's different special provisions. So this is the reason, and this is one reason. The other reason is a very distinct state culture. Do you think Citizenship Amendment Act will apply to Tamil Nadu or not? Or should the Citizenship Amendment Act pass by Parliament? Do you think that has to be approved by state legislature first by passing a resolution? Only then central laws will apply to Tamil Nadu? Is it the case, or is it applicable if Parliament makes a law? Parliamentary law automatically applies to other states, but not in Nagaland, not in Mizoram, because the entire state's culture is very distinct from the mainland. That is why If at all any law is passed by the parliament, if it actually impacts, if it is about land ownership, if it is about socio-cultural practices of people, in that case, in these two grounds, okay, if it is about land ownership, any such law must be approved by the Nagaland Assembly, and the Mizoram Assembly must actually pass a resolution supporting the parliamentary law. Only then the law will even apply to these states. So you understand, normal constitutional provisions are deviated, okay, they are bypassed because of certain needs, because to protect the culture of the Naga culture. You cannot allow others to come and own land there. So land issue is one serious matter. If you don't give such kind of protections to Nagaland will become once again a hotbed of insurgency. That is why these kind of accommodations have been provided so as to satisfy the interest of these different states. Okay, so you can find out with respect to Sikkim, Goa, Arunachal Pradesh, because of the small size, certain constitutional provisions will be bypassed. So we are providing exceptions. Nagaland, Arunachal Pradesh, security and law and order issues are important. So governor must be relieved of the advice tendered by the Council of Ministers. So we have some special provisions. Similarly, for Nagaland and Mizoram, we have to protect their distinct culture. Next is the criteria of backwardness. What is this? I'll ask you a question. In Tamil Nadu, can the Tamil Nadu government restrict Biharis from getting employment in Tamil Nadu government offices? Can it be done or not? TNPSC Group 1 posts is only for Tamilians, not for others. Can that be restricted or not? It cannot be restricted because Constitution prevents discrimination in public offices on, say, certain grounds. Ground of sex, caste, religion. Residence is also one such ground. You cannot exclude anybody from government offices. No laws for excluding people from entry into government offices can be made on certain grounds, right? But you take the case of Andhra Pradesh, the United Andhra Pradesh. You have Telangana region and you have Andhra, right? Let's say this is the state of Andhra Pradesh. So you have Telangana as well as Andhra Pradesh. Do you know which part is more developed and more prosperous economically? Is it Telangana or is it Andhra Pradesh? Telangana. Andhra has been historically more prosperous compared to Telangana because Telangana was earlier Hyderabad Nizam's domains. But this part was always under British rule. Madras Presidency was under British rule. More irrigational facilities and geography also. More mountainous, more dry lands. So Telangana people always felt that they are less developed compared to Andhras. Andhra Pradesh already had a jump start when it comes to getting better education, English education, better irrigation facilities, so more agriculture, more economic wise also they are better. So Telangana people and all in Hyderabad, when you say all the government jobs, all entry to all medical colleges, engineering colleges, all the seats, if you find who's actually getting entry into that, it is the people from Andhra, coastal Andhra, who's getting into government services as well as educational facilities. So Telangana people were not able to compete with Andhra. So to satisfy these Telangana aspirations, otherwise Telangana people, they were violent protests. So of course politics. So to satisfy the aspirations of Telangana people, a bypassing of this reservation principle was provided in the form of special provisions. What are the special provisions? When it comes to employment opportunities in government offices, certain categories of government offices, and when it comes to educational opportunities in higher institutions of learning. In all these places, the residence of Telangana is important. You have to be a resident of that particular region. Only then you can get employment or entry to educational institutions. So this is there so as to bypass this provision in the fundamental rights, which prohibits discrimination on grounds of residence. Okay, this is one such criteria. This is how backwardness in Andhra Pradesh was sought to be rectified. by bypassing certain provisions of constitution. Same is the case with Karnataka. You take the case of Karnataka, this is the state. This part of Karnataka, this is called as Hyderabad, Karnataka. So the districts of Koppal, Gulbarga, Raichur, Bellary, very backward, completely backward compared to other parts of Karnataka. The reason is because this was all Hyderabad Nizam's domains, states reorganization. This was given to Karnataka, and it was expected that same kind of reservations is also given for Hyderabad, Karnataka also. Employment into government opportunities reserved for people of these area alone. These people from outside this place cannot come and get into government employment opportunities at certain classes. Okay, this is one. And one other facility is for the development of this region, governor of Karnataka every year. So let's take Tamil Nadu. This part of Tamil Nadu is underdeveloped compared to the western part of Tamil Nadu. Okay, so how do you think money can be allotted to these areas for development? You have to build new water connectivity, water facilities or drinking water facilities. You have to develop more transportation systems in these places. How can that be developed? It can be done through budget allocation, correct? Only by passing a budget, money can be devoted for developing these places, right? So, but in Karnataka, the system is different. For developing this part, governor need not wait for budget to be discussed and passed, nothing. Governor will decide how much money should be taken out from the consolidated fund of the state. He can just give that money to this particular place for its development. A special development board will be constituted for the development of Hyderabad, Karnataka. Okay, a special authority is there in Karnataka. That authority takes charge, headed by an IAS officer. So he will be in charge of development of this place. And governor has been given the power in the constitution. He can just take money out of consolidated fund of the state and he can just give it to the special development authority for the development of this part of Karnataka, which otherwise could not have happened. Otherwise, a budget should be passed, and it was expected that normal Kannadigas, they will not have any affinity towards this place. Okay, because they are actually, they have mixed culture. They are from Hyderabad, and it might, so the normal Kannadigas from other areas, they may not actually allow the development of this place. It is for that, it is to prevent this problem, because budget is a majoritarian opinion, right? Whatever house majority, if it votes, then money can be given to this part. It was expected that the majority will not vote in favor of this area. So that is why, to protect this group of people, a special development board was established, and governor can just take out money instead of waiting for the budget to be passed. So two advantages to Hyderabad, Karnataka region. One is with respect to reservations. The other one is with respect to budgetary allocation for the development of these areas, which will be taken as an expenditure by the governor out of the consolidated fund. So this is the essence of special provisions for different states. When you go through your Lakshmikant, this is the idea that you have to keep in your mind. Everything else will automatically follow. Minute differences, provisions, everything else. But these are the 4 reasons for which special provisions have been kept in the constitution. Okay. Sir, but Andhra has low literacy rate in India, around 67% only. So what is the average Indian literacy rate? It is much lower than that. Okay, compared to Telangana, Andhra is developed. That was my argument. I'm not saying Andhra Pradesh is US. No. Among the two, Andhra is much better. They were cornering all the employment opportunities in government. So why the employment provision was not taken for Andhra Pradesh till now? Sorry, what? I don't get your question. Why the employment provision was not taken for Andhra Pradesh till now? What does it mean? You mean why? You mean do you mean to say is that provision still there or not? That special provision for employment only for local residents, is it still there or not? Is that your question? If that is your question, the answer is yes. Even now, Telangana people will not be able to compete with Andhras into government services. No. That is why even now they have to be protected. That is why the protection provisions are still there. Okay. Just because a new state has been formed, still they face the competition because they have to write exam in Telugu only. Maybe one paper will be Telugu. So even in Tamil Nadu also we can have one qualifying paper as Tamil paper. But a person like Rangaraj Pandey who has been settled in Tamil Nadu for a long time, he would be good with Tamil. So he can write the paper and he can clear it also. Same is the case in Telangana also. People from Andhra Pradesh can still come and write in Telugu and they can also clear and get into jobs. That is why the protective provision is still there. Even now also, you have to have a residence in Telangana only to get into, only then you can get into these employment opportunities in government. Okay, so we'll stop here. What is the third reason I mentioned? Too small to have representation in Lok Sabha, too small to have a decent size of a state legislature. That is the reason. So fifth schedule, sixth schedule, special provisions, we are done. We'll continue. We'll continue with the rest in the next class. Okay. Are you able to comprehend? So I hope there are no issues in. I cannot go into the minute fine points and teach you. This is one provision for Sikkim. This is one provision for Sikkim. I don't think that is required. Also, you would be able to manage that when you read your Lakshmikant yourself. You just need to have this broad ideas, okay, with which you will be able to spend your time and read. Okay. Fine. We'll meet tomorrow and we'll continue with the rest of the topics. Thank you.